The next sector on which we're putting the spotlight now is the automotive space. We all know that Ather is the next IPO in town. It'll be the first big IPO, actually, of the current financial year. It's all set to open for the general public next week. And for the anchor investors, it opens out on Friday. So what does this really spell for the EV sector in India, particularly, of course, EV two-wheelers? That's what we're looking to discuss with our next set of experts. Joining in are Hormazd Sorabjee, editor at Autocar India, and Kumar Rakesh, India analyst, auto and IT at BNP Paribas. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Great to have you on. Thank you for joining in. Hormazd, I'm going to open with you because I go back to a conversation that we had on Ola. And this is well before the Ola stock price decline had started. And we were flagging off some concerns in terms of, after sales, the product itself and all. Short point is that Ola has been a pretty bitter experience from an investor standpoint. And on a separate note, there's all this going on with Blue Smart. So in general, in this environment, we have now Ather coming in, very different company. But what can investors expect? Will it be a little sweeter this time around?
I think for sure, I don't think you can paint both companies with the same brush. I mean, I've been very open about it. Ola, absolutely very, very poor credibility. I think just the way they've gone about it, I think they've taken investors for a ride is my view, just the way they've gone it. And, you've seen the reports, compliance issues, regulatory problems, very, very typical. My basic issue with Ola is that, from a technology standpoint, I've really not seen any breakthrough in what they've been doing. It's still the S1 Pro, which again is, a product which has come from Europe and adapted over here. I don't see any huge R&D capability in the company. I mean, the cells they are planning to make also as a 4680 cell. Is that suitable for a small scooter? I have my doubts on that. Whereas Ather, to me is actually far more refreshing, much more credible. They're sorted on their engineering. And, I actually have a lot of faith in that company. And so I said, you can't paint both with the same brush. So I think that's what investors also need to know, that, you have to. And obviously what's happened to Blue Smart, again, there are promoters and there are promoters. So they're not all cut from the same cloth.
Absolutely. Hormazd, but just one follow-up question. The only issue, again, purely from a market and investor standpoint, is that there is so much and such rapid, frequent policy change within EV, and that's always going to be a risk, right? Look at the lobbying that's happening in Delhi, and that was, I think, a source-based story that our colleagues in Delhi had just put out. The hybrid guys are now lobbying. They want hybrids to be given the same kind of treatment and perhaps incentives as EVs. So from a two-wheeler standpoint, since we're talking Ather right now, is there any policy uncertainty, regulatory issues, any such risks that investors should be very well aware of in the immediate future?
I think, the policy uncertainty, the fact that, policies are not defined well in advance. Again, this whole thing on CAFE, it's just been stretching. So I think that really is a big fundamental issue that, affects the entire industry, not just EVs, especially the ICE guys, because, emissions is a bigger issue for them and a bigger challenge for them, where it's not so much for the EVs. But you're right, I think these constant flip-flops between, especially at the state level, as you said, you've got road tax, once it's waived off, then it's come back on. So that does cause a lot of uncertainty. But I think, what's very clear is that EVs are the future. They will always have a huge fiscal benefit over ICE vehicles. And I think, especially with scooters, I think that's really been the segment that's led EV growth because scooters lend themselves best to electrification. So I think that is the safest bet right now in the EV space. Of course, it's getting very competitive. You've got the legacy players also fighting back. Bajaj Auto, I mean, it's really kind of up the ante. TVS there as well. It's all come at the cost of Ola, which we've seen their market share has completely fallen. So it's not going to be easy for Ather either. You've got really strong legacy players in this game as well. But I think at least what I see is that, they've approached it right. Their fundamentals are right. Their products are good. And, they're not in this mad rush for massive volumes and growth and, a lot of smoke and mirrors the way Ola has kind of, projected itself.
I mean, strong words, and always strong words.
That's why we like Hormazd.
Stuff.
He cuts through the web.
Absolutely. By the way, Ather, guys, is like the poster child for incubation out of educational institutions. It's come out of the IIT Madras Research Park. So if you go down there, it's like a point of pride. Ather and what the founders, etc., have done with that company. Kumar, come into the conversation. I mean, as an analyst, what is your assessment of Ather? We've got the price band now. The RHP, of course, has been out there. We've been reporting on many of the details, and they'll come up on the screen. But what is your sense? Ather.
Hi, good morning, Prashant. I'll not be able to speak specifically about the company, but I think what Hormazd was earlier saying, that in the two-wheeler space, especially in scooters, electrification seems to be a structural trend. It is the cost advantage customers have very well started appreciating. And that is something which we have seen over the last 2 years when the incentives have been coming down on the electric two-wheelers. The penetration falls for a month or two and then revives back up again. So, and then continues to grow. So that structural shift towards electrification in the two-wheeler space, we think is already pretty much underway, at least for the scooter segment. We'll have to see how much of success EVs can make in motorcycles. It would be relatively more complicated to electrify motorcycles at attractive price points. But at least we have enough and more headroom right now to electrify the entire scooter space. And that is where many of these new age startups are working. And some have started creating pretty good niche using their differentiated vertical integration and technology know-how. While the incumbents have definitely established the leadership, a couple of more Japanese players also will enter the electrification journey through this year, and we'll have to see how that redistributes the market share. But for the startups, the space would be really to create a niche for themselves, and technology is a good differentiator to create that niche.
All right. Hi, Kumar Rakesh and Hormazd. Thanks a lot for joining in. Well, Kumar, I wanted to ask you, there has been this talk that India is going to go a little bit easy on the duties, and then we'll have, the Harley-Davidsons and other US automobiles here in India. Do you think it is reducing duties, but actually we're not really giving away anything? Markets are very different. The left and right hand drive is very different, and maybe they don't make much of a dent. What's your take?
I think, yeah, I agree. Now, the incumbents in India who are selling are well established. The brand perception about the brands which are available in the markets are very well established. And now I wouldn't expect that to create a material impact on the existing structure of the market, partly also because of the price point at which these products will come potentially would be much above where the average price point in the market is. On the car side, the average price point is close to about 11-12 lakh rupees in India, which is significantly below the average price point what it is in Europe or US for that matter. And hence that may not create a lot of impact, and even more so in the two-wheeler space. The market in India is very different compared to US. And we have seen this in China as well. China earlier used to have a lot of restrictions in terms of global OEMs entering into the Chinese market. They necessarily need to have JVs and such restrictions. But when the electrification journey started, they reduced many of these restrictions. But what we have seen actually is Chinese OEMs are doing far, far better in the EV space now that they have established themselves. The customer and the market is well established. They are able to compete actually quite fiercely with these global OEMs in the Chinese market. And hence now we think we are way beyond the point where these domestic companies or the established companies could see a material impact from any new entrants.
Kumar, what are your top stock bets, auto OEMs?
So we prefer passenger vehicle names over two-wheeler industry. As we are discussing on this show, there's a lot of flux which will happen within the two-wheeler industry, the market share shift in the two-wheeler EV space. Some more entrants would be entering in the EV space, and that will continue to create impact on the ICE volume as well as margin of the overall business. And hence we see the passenger vehicle industry relatively more stable, where the bulk of the competition is within the existing incumbents and we don't have any disruption happening from outside. And also we would expect the long-term growth drivers to be very well in place for passenger vehicle industry. And that's why we prefer Maruti, Suzuki and Mahindra. Mahindra is delivering a pretty solid volume growth, and even their farm equipment business has been doing pretty solid.
Yeah.
So we would expect them to continue to deliver double-digit volume growth. Maruti, from a longer-term perspective, the points which you were earlier highlighting there, hybrid at some stage may start getting favorable policy support. Even without
Yeah.
that, globally, we have seen hybrids to do much better than EVs in most of the markets, barring, say, China or UK. In UK, more for regulatory reasons, EVs have done better. But hybrid is the powertrain which has really picked up in the recent years. And India is behind in that curve. So we would expect at some stage hybrid in India also to start picking up. And the key beneficiary of that would be Maruti.
Got it. So Maruti, you like. M&M obviously has been the poster boy of the Indian automotive space from a financial market standpoint, which brings me to my final question to Hormazd as well. Hormazd, going back to passenger vehicles for a bit, you just heard the comments that Kumar made. The stocks, the companies, barring M&M, they've all been struggling just because of lack of growth, right? And against this backdrop, we have every day Mr. Elon Musk tweeting, saying that duties need to be lower. We don't know what finally that trade negotiation is going to be like. And I don't know if we can bring duties down to zero on an imported car. That would be almost unheard of in India before. But what should we be prepared for next 6 to 8 months on the PV side within this whole, Tesla knocking at India doors perspective?
Yeah. Well, I think firstly, you could have some serious reductions in duty, but they would be coming with conditions. It could be for a limited number of units. It could be above a certain price point. So I don't think, as Kumar says, it's going to really impact the kind of the core of the market. And over here, our cost structure is so strong, it's very difficult, for even, imports to compete with the lower duty if you try to go low down over there. But I think, the EV space, again, I think 2025 is going to be a very, very crucial year. Clearly, we've seen, let's say Mahindra, which has launched two vehicles, a bit of a measured start. I think they haven't really gone full tilt on it. I think they're making sure things like the software and all are sorted before it reaches the hands of the customer. And I think you've got Maruti now coming in. We'll have to see what they do. It'll be very interesting. I think what Maruti will do will leverage its network, which is quite essential from an charging infra point of view. And that could be Maruti's play, not so much the product, but the EV ecosystem, which will, kind of be their play. Hyundai have launched the Creta EV. Again, a tepid response, really not as much as we thought, doing under 1,000 units a month. So, I think it's going to be very interesting in terms of how the EV segment plays out. But what's for sure, I think from a 2.5 penetration, it's going to be substantially higher. Best case situation would be perhaps, let's say 3.5 to 4%. But it's still, it's again, very, there's still a lot of barriers in the EV space. And I think infrastructure is primarily the largest one.
Okay. All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Very insightful discussion, very helpful one. And let's see what the next couple of weeks bring for the Indian automotive space, starting with, of course, this Ather IPO. Thank you for joining in this morning.